नमस्कार, आप देख रहे हैं राजपथ, द क्विंट, हिंदी क्विंट और ब्लूमबर्ग क्विंट पर। आज हमारे मेहमान इतने खास हैं कि जब उनके इंटरव्यू की मैं तैयारी कर रहा था तो सोच रहा था कि उनका परिचय मैं इंग्लिश में दूं ताकि उनको पता चले कि मैं उनके बारे में क्या कह रहा हूं। मेरा ये काम आसान हो गया है क्योंकि वो हैं तो अमेरिकन प्रोफेसर, जॉन हॉपकिंस यूनिवर्सिटी में सीनियर एडजंक्ट प्रोफेसर हैं साउथ एशिया स्टडीज़ के। लेकिन मैं कह सकता हूं वो सिर्फ इंडिया वॉचर या इंडिया वेटरन नहीं है, वो इंडियन हैं क्योंकि उन्होंने पढ़ाई यहाँ से की है। वो हिंदी समझ लेते हैं, बोल भी लेते हैं। उनकी पत्नी भारतीय हैं, इसलिए हम क्लेम कर सकते हैं कि वो भी इंडियन हैं। सर, आपने हमारे लिए वक्त निकाला, आपका बहुत शुक्रिया। We will, when we come to the book that you have just written and released, co-authored with Sridhar Damle, The View to the Inside, RSS, A View to the Inside. We will talk about that. But before that, just to kind of give your introduction in your own words, I will ask you to speak in Hindi.
मुश्किल है, मैं बहुत कम शब्द जानता हूँ, लेकिन some difficulties है अभी, but हिंदी बहुत खूबसूरत भाषा है और practice चाहिए.
Okay, and you know Tamil also?
I know a little Tamil, yes. I can understand some Tamil. My wife is, as you know, her mother tongue is Tamil.
So let's start talking about the book, and I'm sure most interviews that you have done, all they want to ask you is about the relationship, the next strategy, and what is going to happen in the next Lok Sabha election. So I want to start about the relationship part. What is exact relationship today between the BJP and the RSS? What is the exact relationship between the two individuals, Mr. Narendra Modi and Mr. Mohan Bhagwat?
Right. You're right that is the question that's almost always asked. As you may know, a little history, the Jana Sangh, the parent party of the Bharatiya Janata Party, was formed by a person who was not an RSS person, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. And it was supported by Guru Gowalkar, who was the head of the RSS at that time, because he didn't want the RSS to become a political party. There was, in my book, in fact, our previous book, The Brotherhood in Saffron, we go into the history more than in this one. There were RSS activists who wanted the RSS to become a political party. And the Gowalkar, I think very wisely, decided this was not a good idea. And so as a kind of compromise is the Bharatiya Janata Sangh was formed. It then later became, after the emergency, it then it turned into, under Vajpayee and Advani, into the Bharatiya Janata Party. And the party and the RSS, the RSS is not the party, and it doesn't want to be the party. In fact, a very senior RSS person who I saw a few days ago, and I won't give his name because it wasn't a formal interview, I asked him that question too. I said, what is your relationship with the party? And his answer was a very typical one. He said, we are not the party, we don't want to be the party. And he said, all you have to do is look at the 2014 election when the head of the RSS had to, on several occasions, make some public statements that the volunteers of the Swayamsevaks who are working for the BJP in those elections have to remember that they are first and foremost members of the RSS. So there was a sense of distinction. And the two have had differences over the past 30 years in terms of policy. Now, does the RSS want the BJP to win? Of course they do. But to what extent are they willing to work for it? It varies. In the elections of 1977 and 2014, they went all out. Because in both cases, what united them in going all out was they feared that there would be restrictions on their activities. After the emergency, the RSS was outlawed during the emergency. And in this case, there were the charges among some of saffron terrorism.
So you expect that in next election, that kind of involvement, intensity will not be there in the next election?
Unless something drastically happens, and I don't see that happening, no. Politics, you never know. Politics, can change quickly, but I don't imagine.
But why shouldn't RSS really go all out only because in their 90 years of history, this kind of power this kind of success, they never tested. So if they have a good 10-year run where one of their organization called BJP is in the power, they grow and they can do whatever they want to. So they should go whole hog.
But partly it's the way that they look at themselves and what they are not politicians. In fact, the way they look at policy, they look at policy as bottom up, whereas political parties as part of the government look at as top down, and you get a fundamental difference there. And the RSS has always been, even today, among some people who are somewhat surprising, have a certain suspicion of government and what it does, the deep state. There is a fear of the deep state. Now, one of the ironies today is if the BJP, let's say, wins or forms the government after 2019, they will have had 2 terms, and maybe they'll have 3. Then there's a possibility that the BJP becomes part of the deep state. That's a possible tension, because the RSS has always been suspicious of the deep state.
Sir, is it tension or it is only a posturing and position?
No, it's not posturing.
That we are not interested in state, but we need political tools to grow.
No, it's not that. It's not even that they've in the last 20 years, they've grown very rapidly. And in most of that time, they were not in power. The BJP was not in power. In fact, their fastest growth was in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, when the Congress was in power, not when the BJP. They are interested in governance and policy, however, and there's a reason for that. And part of what we tried to show in the book is one of the big changes in the RSS now from 30 years ago, when the earlier book came out, was the growth of affiliated organizations. And the depth that these various, and there are over 100 of them, they've gone into various parts of society. So you have India's largest trade union, which is the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, which is one of theirs. India's largest student university group is one of theirs, and on and on and on, including a group that was formed, Sri Shakti, for women's rights, that has become, one of their organizations. Now, these organizations often have different goals. For example, take foreign direct investment. That's become a major point with the government because they want investment, because they want jobs, and that's a political compulsion for the next election, that they create jobs. However, the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, the labor affiliate, is against foreign direct investment. And there's the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, which was formed specifically against investment because they see investment as largely a multinational affair that introduces consumerism, induces a bigger growth in the disparity between rich and poor. So they've been against it.
What is the exact relationship between Mr. Modi and Mr. Bhagwat? Why I'm asking this? Earlier, RSS never felt concerned, even though there were differences between, say, when BJP was in power, with Mr. Vajpayee, with Mr. Advani.
Oh no, they were very concerned. Sudarshan, then the Star Sanchalag, had major problems with Prime Minister Advani and expressed them. He was much more blunt. The difference is not that the RSS necessarily agrees with the government more, it's that Mohan Bhagwat is much more the diplomat.
Right. So we are obsessed with making political forecasts.
Yeah.
So everyone asks once. So I always say that if you understand the exact relationship between the 2 individuals, Mr. Modi and Mr. Bhagwat, then you will be able to decode the political direction and possible strategy and communication about the next election. Is it a relationship of 2 equals? Who has the primacy?
It varies depending on circumstances. Each, I think, respects the other. In fact, these 2 gentlemen get along. They're the same age, born the same year, 1950. They've had interaction in the past in their mutual careers of going up. Mohan Bhagwat understands that policy is basically the decisions of the Prime Minister and the party, whereas the Prime Minister realizes that the RSS is important in training a cadre of workers in the kind of training process, and also mediating when disputes happen, including disputes that the BJP have. Let me give you one very important example of that. Land and labor issues are very important to this government because they think that reforms of land and labor legislation in this country will enhance growth. But it hasn't happened at the national level. Why not? And I can tell you now, I know this is a fact, it's not because there's opposition from much of the opposition parties, which there is, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is there's opposition within the Sangh Parivar to this. The Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh is against it, as is the farmer affiliate. And in fact, they've had meetings, which they regularly have among them, to come to some consensus, and they haven't. So what do? the government made use of a constitutional provision that says on certain areas, which land and labor are two areas, if the central government desires, they can pass the responsibility to the states. And they've done that. And a few states, in fact, have passed legislation in that respect. But the difference, the reason they haven't done it at the central level is within the Sangh Parivar, there is major disagreement. And so this image of the RSS as a monolith is wrong. It is not a monolith.
Okay. So, Mr. Modi came because of a serious hope and the hope of change.
Yes.
And that required, because you have studied India in a very deep manner, that we should have gone for serious governance changes, structural changes, institutional changes. Once there was a debate on land acquisition, he just stopped doing those serious things.
For reasons I just mentioned to you, they couldn't. It's not that he doesn't want it. It's because within the Sangh Parivar there's a major difference of opinion.
So in that case, if you say that Mr. Bhagwat and Mr. Modi has a good bonding, then Mr. Modi has a case to go and tell Mr. Bhagwat, look, my hands were restricted by your persuasions. Now there is an election and you have to help me. And you help me, in fact, more intensely than 2014.
One is they will not do that because they don't see the need to do it. They believe that the BJP can on its own run a campaign. Their Swayam Seviks will help in campaigning, but not to the extent because they don't think it's needed before. And when you ask the RSS to help us when it's needed, that's not a kind of question I would imagine that the Prime Minister would ever engage in. That's agreed to. They have a sense of where their functions lie.
Sir, look at the recent developments. Earlier, I also thought that Mr. Modi has his own agenda, own timelines. But suddenly, in last few months, as we are moving towards election, the issue of Teen Talaq, withdrawing support from PDP government, the agenda related to Kashmir, which is very dear to RSS, making some more constitutional changes, the core agenda of RSS. So somewhere I get a sense that now RSS is actually on the driving seat and this government is doing certain things which were essentially not part of his own priorities.
No, I don't see it that way. In part because Mohan Bhagwat doesn't want to be in the driving seat. As I mentioned to you, just a few days ago, I saw a very senior RSS person who ended the conversation with saying, make sure that you say loud and clear, we are not in politics, we don't want to be, we are not a political party. And that's all true. In fact, throughout the RSS, there is an undercurrent that politics is corrupting. When the Bharatiya Jana Sangh was formed, Golwalkar actually wanted to stay out of politics entirely.
Yeah.
Because he saw it as as something that would corrupt its membership, and there's still a sense of that it is a corrupting occupation. But given the history of the RSS, which has been banned 3 times, and one of the fears is that the government may use its powers to restrict its activities. The other thing with the development of the various affiliates, you now have affiliates who are handling issues which require government. Let's take the farmers group that they have. The farmers group talks about things like prices, it talks about things like inputs, water, that sort of thing, transportation. And the RSS gets involved in trying to help their affiliate. And you have all the affiliates, almost all of them, deal in issues that they involve the government. India's largest set of private schools is actually run by an RSS affiliate. Now, schools, as you well know, have all sorts of rules and regulations. And in fact, right now, the various states are going through a curriculum review, and the RSS is interested in that because it's educational affiliate. And there's a metaphor, I like it came up in the book launch of our book a few days ago, is that the affiliates are something like the tail that wags the dog, at least on this issue, policy. So the RSS, one of the changes from 3 decades ago, the RSS now has an intense concern with policy questions that it didn't have before. Why is that? It's not because of its own internal concern for it. It's because the various affiliates deal with issues on which the government plays a role. The Indian government is almost pervasive, and it's a result of its past. This is not the Swatantra Party, which actually wanted the government to get out of all sorts of things. The RSS is not that. It's willing to live, and the BJP, its political affiliate, is willing to live with a lot of government. And one of the reasons that some of the libertarians that I mentioned, who there are a group within, there are in the Congress as well, who are upset, is the government seems to be spreading out its various functions, like the health issue, this national health care plan, very expensive. It's going to involve the government in all sorts of things across the government. You have a range of other things that have been done. The libertarians are very upset by that.
True.
And it won't change. India is a democracy. Majority of the people here are poor. You're not going to have any government, this is my prediction, I think it's going to be right, who are ever going to win, because it will not suit the interests of the majority of the population of this country.
What do you think will be their own strategy as RSS going forward? What is their now key agenda to pursue?
A strong India is obviously at a core to that. Their goal has always been greater unity among Indians, while accepting the reality of divisions in the country. And that can take some unusual patterns, which we talk about in the book. In Northeast India, where eating beef is common, the RSS itself has said that if that's part of the custom, that's fine. They will not try to undermine that. In a state like Gujarat, where it's not part of the custom, they will be tougher on it. Where did all this beef legislation start? It didn't start under the BJP, it started under the previous Congress government.
Of course.
Because it represents a popular sentiment.
So they are changing, or say being accommodative from their core belief to these new trends, only because they know otherwise they won't be able to be successful.
Every organization has that. That's not unique to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every organization tries to protect itself.
Agreed. Next question, and that is most complex actually. Caste is a problem for RSS and BJP. That is why they do everything that I forget my caste, you forget your caste, because that is my reality. Now, I am not sure whether that has really got diluted, or still when I determine to vote, caste factor stays in my head as the most decisive factor. BJP talks of nationalism, they talk of national pride, they talk of religion, they very seldom talk religion.
They very seldom talk religion.
So they talk casteism. They talk casteism because they are scared of caste realities. They want us to forget that, make a big packaging of saffron color wrap around that.
But that saffron has nothing to do with caste. In fact, you put your finger on the issue, is caste and caste hierarchies are a problem. Because what they want, the reason for being is unity. And let's face it, caste and caste hierarchy stands in the way of unity. Look at this thing about affirmative action programs. You now have the Marathas talking. Here in this area you had the Jats. And if anything, these programs strengthen caste identity. So look at India's civil law. India's civil law is based on religion. I mean, did you know that? It's based on religion. Yeah. And so what that does...
And that is one agenda that they want to change.
Yes, of course, they want to make it less religiously oriented. They want a common civil code for that, and they'll never have it. So, here again, I was the same person I mentioned I was talking to. I mentioned the issue of caste. He says, yes, that's one of the banes of our existence, is caste doesn't seem to be going away.
Sir, you spoke about unity. That really means that you embrace other lower caste people, share power with them, really show that you believe in diversity. But BJP may be doing it in terms of to create perception, but the power is still held by some powerful castes in this country.
Actually, if you look at all the parties in India, including the communists, they tend to be dominated by the upper caste, with maybe the exception of the Bahujan Samaj party, and maybe the Samajwadi, because they tend to be very caste-oriented. But the major parties tend to be. Now, the Prime Minister is another backward class person. And in fact, if you look at the caste composition of the candidates, because we have one of our case studies is the 2015 Bihar elections, assembly elections, you have an unusually high number of OBCs that were nominated for BJP positions. And there was some complaints among higher caste Hindus that one of the reasons we didn't do as well as we wanted is maybe there was a misorientation of who were the candidates. So there has been a definite shift, including within the RSS itself. Now, unfortunately for research, the RSS does not keep records of the caste background of its people. But I am told that, yes, you're right, that historically it was a kind of Brahmin Banya party. But it is increasingly less that, as more and more, particularly other backward castes, are coming in. And Dalits, they've made a special effort to get Dalits and tribals. The President of India, for
To
example.
showcase or actually empower them?
Well, there may be an element of that, but obviously, as a political party, you try to make decisions that appeal, and one of the obvious appeals is to have a person like a president who comes from a certain background, and that reflects an issue, which is, one of the ironies is they want at least the larger RSS view of things is to get rid of these identity issues so we can all be more or less alike. That's playing to caste issues as well, and but they're a political party. Amit Shah, when he makes decisions, says we make decisions about who's winnable. And what do they look at? They look at caste composition and all of that sort of thing to find out candidates. So that kind of undermines it, but it reflects the dilemma it faces. You really want a society which is more equalitarian and which people think more, at least of themselves, as more alike. But you have the reality of India.
You spoke about inequality.
Yes.
Similarly, the other division, which is not much talked about, but is a real big challenge, the disconnect between urban narrative and rural narrative, the different aspiration. We somewhere are trying to fit certain old models globally tried, not sure whether they are successful or flop. And there is no clarity even from RSS and BJP on that front. They talk a lot about it.
Yeah, all parties do here. And the process of smaller and smaller farms is a process that goes back many years. And what do? You're getting increasing number of children of farmers are looking for something else to do. And it may be smart to have industries set up in rural areas where they can be employed. Many come to cities and go into the slums of cities looking for jobs because they're very desperate. I don't know how many people I meet every day, who are driving a taxi or something else who have come from some village. And I often ask them, why are you here? There's no job. They're looking for jobs. The aspirant class in India is large and growing. Modi won in many ways because he appealed to that aspirant class. The argument, the narrative was Gujarat was one of India's fastest growing states and that created jobs. That is still the narrative, but it's one that many people don't believe anymore because, that not all that many jobs, jobs have been created, but not at the rate that's required, to provide jobs and advances to people.
So, sir, what is your assessment on these two issues? Because many believe that Mr. Modi won with such a handsome mandate because liberal Indians and younger population voted for him. How do you see their mood today?
Younger people did. We have statistics to show that. When you define liberal, I'm not sure who gets into that category.
Because we put people in different baskets.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a difficult
those
basket.
Those people who never voted for BJP for the first time.
Some did, yes, some did. Many didn't, but some did. I'd say the major reason for success, at least according to the polls I've seen, is the aspirant class, especially the poor aspirant class, voted for the BJP and Modi.
So BJP's another big trouble was appealing to poor and appealing to Dalits to really expand its vote base.
But it succeeded, on both. It got over 34% of the Dalit vote. Now, according to recent polls, that percentage has gone down, but it's still significant.
But 2014 was an exceptional circumstances.
But it was exceptional in part because of Modi. In part because of Modi.
Of course, yes.
He stepped into he made that a presidential election for the first time in India. This next one is likely to be a presidential type election as well. But he made it a presidential election with him as the core of it. And from all accounts that I see, he may be even more popular than his party. In terms of who supports him, it was the aspirant class, and they need to keep that. They need to keep this class, which was very largely young people, desperately looking for jobs. In this country, there is a kind of desperation. Partly it's traditional family functions, particularly boys, but increasingly girls. They need to get a job.
Sir, you used a very important word, desperation.
Yes.
And now then there is a sense of deprivation. And then there is a new challenge in this country, what we thought was fringe factor. The large-scale violence. They are not the crime driven by individual consideration, crime of passion. They are the violence driven by social, political motivations.
Only some. That's only somewhat true. I mean, you know, one has to be careful when, you know, identifying who these people are. That there are a lot of them are thugs, but some are not. And the RSS has tended to identify the issue as one of law and order. Fine and good, but that's probably not enough. They really need to do more, I think, you know, to speak out on this issue.
That's my question. Do you think they have adequately responded on time, effectively, because there is a charge on them that there is a sense of impunity among the perpetrators. There is a sense of complacency. There is a sense of actually silent support.
Well, there's a sense of empowerment. That's no doubt about it. And I think, you know, this is one thing where the government really has to do more. My wife tells me, though, in talking to her own workers, the sense of outrage of the killing of the cow is a very real one. It's not just a law and order issue. It is a law and order issue, but it's more than that.
Sir, before we wrap up this interview, last question on the state of opposition in India today. So the kind of strong, aggressive BJP we have today, so in 2019, what is your audit says about the counter narrative and the state of opposition?
Long ago, when I used to be in the State Department, when we were asked to predict elections, we never did. It is too dangerous.
I'm not asking you to predict.
You know, it's too dangerous to predict. And what is the state of the opposition? They're trying to get together. Were they able to get together? And I put that in the subjunctive mood. Whether they were able to get together is an issue. You know, they've made a compromise that they will have relationships at the state level, but not at the national level. Already, it indicates a certain issue there. Is the BJP able to stay together and keep its coalition? And now, as you know, the government is making nice with the Chief Minister of Orissa, you know, and other things. And will the Shiv Sena stay loyal to it and other things? So you have this kind of bargain. The beauty of Indian politics, you have this little bargaining going on.
This brings up to another very interesting issue, that is the noise of nationalism, pride, Hindu, Mussalman, Bharat, Pakistan is so loud that the real issues of job, equity in the growth that you just described, the empowerment of citizen, the delivery of promises are no more dominant public conversation topics, because the other topic is very toxic, and that sounds very interesting, very engaging. So do you think that is also an unfortunate situation?
As we get closer to the election, I think particularly the BJP will focus more and more on the economy and economics. And you know, the idea is, and I've heard this from some of their people, particularly in the RSS, that, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats, and not just some of them, but in fact a rising tide lifts some boats faster than other boats. Which is why I suspect you're going to get programs, maybe costly and maybe inefficient, that kind of help the poor, because obviously the poor are a majority here, and so you're trying to do various things. In the last election, there were polls that show large numbers of people who were poor but aspirational didn't want handouts. They wanted a job. And that was, Modi was able to sort of package that desire better than the other side. Now that the BJP is in power, will it fall into the same trap of using handouts rather than growth that creates jobs? That's the issue, one of the issues. And is the Congress Party able to sort of exploit that to its advantage?
Sir, it was a wonderful conversation with you, very, very enlightening, but I would hope that you will be again writing another book soon after the elections.
My wife has told me if I write another book, she'll divorce me.
Oh my God.
The reason for writing a book is a very time-consuming, particularly if you have a colleague, as I did. It's a very time-consuming. We work.
But you are a big storehouse of so much research and understanding that writing a postscript after 2019 election is an easy job, isn't it?
Well, I'm doing a chapter for a book that comes out after every Indian election. It's kind of an international group of writers, and I will be writing on the BJP and how it did in the elections. In fact, too bad we don't have time. I could ask your views on what the BJP is all about. You know, what should I focus on?
So then I can take one promise from you that soon after the election results, you will write one article for the Quint.
Okay, I'll be happy to.
Accepted?
Yeah, I accept. Yeah, we shake hands on that.
Thank you.